Welcome to Foundations TV, everybody. We are here today at a very unique location, if you haven't guessed, just by looking at our little friend over here. We are here at a doctor's office, and in front of me is Dr. Kapasi, very well known within the community, of course, and I think with your book now all over the world. So we are here to chat with him for a little bit and find out about his background and how he transitioned himself into poetry. So welcome to Foundations TV, Dr. Kapasi.
Thank you, Gauri, and thank you for giving me this wonderful opportunity to talk to Foundations TV. It is indeed my pleasure. You asked me this question about my background.
Yes, please go ahead.
And I grew up in Africa, east coast of Africa, in a small town called Tanga. It was such a small town that you could throw a stone with a strong arm and it would go across the town. I went through school, Cambridge School certificate. I did fairly well in school. Got 2 promotions, went to college, did well in college. I went to India to college. And I was in Pune, and then I transferred to Bombay and finished my medical career, my medical education in Bombay, and then I moved to East Africa, where I did masters in medicine, which is a surgical program. Got the Ethicon Prize for the best academic performance. Then I got a fellowship to Harvard in 1975 at the Children's Hospital, something unheard of because I was a general surgeon at that time, and I was getting an orthopedic fellowship. So I came on an orthopedic fellowship and worked with a marvelous technician and a great person by the name of John E. Hall. And he thought I would make a great orthopedic surgeon. And from then onwards, I was tutored and kind of put on a rail track towards orthopedics. So I became an orthopedic surgeon, finished my orthopedics in 1980, and opened a first office at the famous 1180 Beacon Street, which is essentially the oldest medical building in Massachusetts, and then expanded, opened a second office in Cambridge at 1252 Cambridge Street, a third office in Dedham, and a fourth office in Haverhill. Then Chandra and I went on to buy a hospital up in Haverhill, and it was the Merrimack Valley Medical Center, which we just sold, as a matter of fact. So my career as an orthopedic surgeon has been marvelous.
That's so wonderful to hear. Now, you've generated a little bit of curiosity in my mind. You were born in Africa, and something took you to India. That's what I want to know. What took you to India, and then something brought you here? Other than the fellowship that you spoke of, was there a dream or an aspiration in your mind that brought you to America? So 2 questions in one.
What brought me to America was that Chandra was doing her MPH at Harvard too, and we had a little child, 3-year-old, and this was an opportunity for me to come temporarily to United States. But the interesting part of it is, as I was applying for student visa in Africa, this angel from down south, she said, "Doc, why don't you apply for a permanent residency?" And I said, "What's a permanent residency?" She explained it to me and processed my papers. Then I found out that Kenya would not allow me to leave because it was brain drain. So I went back to the embassy and talked to them, and they said, "Let me think about this." And they called me back and says, "Would you fly to Canada?" I said, "Yeah, sure, I could fly to Canada." So I flew to Montreal. That's where my papers were stamped, and I came to the United States.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, they say that if you travel the world, you have lived a beautiful life and you've experienced a lot. Do you think that those experiences that you have had while you were traveling across the world, Africa, India, and the US, kind of transitioned you towards poetry in any way?
Yes and no. Poetry, I think, has always been my love. My first poem was, I think, when I was in the 8th grade. and I'd written about a little Siamese cat I had. And then to me it was a stress releaser, so I would have a piece of paper and I would write a poetry. I would get up in the middle of the night and I would write a poetry. So I started writing a little more and started accumulating, got to about 100, 150 poems. And some of my poems are related to incidences in life. For example, I was traveling from my Cambridge office to my Brookline office, and at that time NPR had put a clip on Bosnia, and they had just dug up mass graves, and they didn't know what to do with all this human material that was there. So they scooped them up and they were putting them in this large wood boxes, and all the family and friends and everyone are standing around looking at it. They don't know who's who, who's my brother, who's my sister. And so I pulled next to Charles River, and Haveli was down below my office, and I scribbled a poem called Bosnia, which is about genocide there, on a little napkin from Haveli, and which is part of that book. I had a lady who was 85 years old, and she was sitting right in front of me. And as we were chit-chatting, I know my patients very well. I know their children, I know their grandchildren. So I was chit-chatting, and she started, crying. And I was wondering, I really wondered. So I said, "Ma'am, did I say something wrong?" So she says, "No, damn me." She says, "I forgot they brought me the flag today." So I said, "Ma'am, what does that mean?" Because I'm a post-war child. And she told me all about Vietnam War and how her child was missing in action. I still couldn't understand the depth of her emotion, depth of her feeling. So one night I got up at 2 o'clock and wrote "Missing in Action." And I gave it to her when she came back as a note of condolence. And she says, she read the poem and she gave it back to me. And she says, "Doc, would you read it to me?" And I read it to her. And she says, "Doc, may I hug you?" And I said, "Ma'am, you cannot hug me. I'm the chairman of licensing for the state of Massachusetts, and against medical ethics for you to hug your doctor." But I said, "Who cares? Hug me." And she cried on my shoulder, and that poem, as a matter of fact, went around, and it appeared in a book called Poetic Musing as the first poem. So yes, that's how poetries are for me. It relates to people, relates to life, relates to real incidences.
That is truly a unique combination. They say that doctors have to desensitize themselves and just be very, kind of just go with the patient's problem and offer a solution and do it in a very desensitized manner. And poets are, on the other hand, very, very sensitive people and affected by emotions, and they are empathetic towards people and situations, and that's a rare combination to have. I'm sure you've been a doctor and a poet throughout your life. You started writing when you were in 8th grade, and all over, different incidents of your life have influenced you. So that's very, very interesting. So how did this book come about? How did you decide? What was your inspiration to put all of these beautiful poems together in the form of a book?
I must give credit to the right person in this particular instance. Chandar was always looking at my poems, and she used to always say, "Oh, you write pretty well. You really write good." And I was reciting poems at the School of Divinity, at Harvard, at temples, synagogues. I was reciting poems, so she said, "Why don't you put your poems together?" And that's when we decided to put the poems together. And we were looking at various ways of doing it. And if you look at my book of poems, it's mind's eye, and the I in the mind is my eye. And it's truly a mind's eye if you read those poetries. And thank God it has done well. It went into a second print, and it's being sold all over the world.
Excellent, excellent. Now, the fact that behind every successful man there is a woman looks like to be a true fact in your life, in both the important things that you do, in important aspects of your life. Being the doctor as well as being the poet, looks like your wife is the inspiration behind That's beautiful. That's beautiful. So, where are you headed from here? What do you dream of? I know there's a lot of philanthropic work you do as well. So, is that a direction you're headed towards, or is there a different direction in your mind? So, please share that with us.
Gauri, I am going to keep on writing. My next book is going to be out within a few months, and it's Kashmir on Fire, about ethnic violence of Mujahideen, and it's about Kashmir. So that is already in publication. It's gone through second edit. My next book is Deja Vu, which is about life's experiences and introspection of it. My fourth book is Sinkhole.
Oh my God! Wow.
So I'm writing, and I'm spending every moment. And Chanda says, "Kya kar raha hai?" Every time she comes down, I'm in my lungi and writing. So kya kar raha hai? Then I said, "Wohi kar raha hu, jo karta hu, har subah utھ ke." So I wake up early, and I'm an early riser, so I'm doing that. And other than that, philanthropy is my love. It has come to me very naturally. And I remember way back during that, my dad was a principal of a school, and principals have students, and all students are not equal in a school. And my dad had a tree in Shantiniketan. He had a tree, and underneath there were desks. And he would get all the bad students, I wouldn't call them duffers, bad students, because he would hate me calling them duffers. And he would bring them home and tutor them over weekends and evenings, free of charge. So he was, yeah, the interesting part of it is I learned a lot from him, and I was at a get-together in Canada, a school get-together in Canada, and my dad had once, sold his car, and I couldn't understand why he sold his car. When I came back from med school, he had sold his car. So he says, only you wouldn't understand why I sold the car. So I persisted, and he told me that there were two students, African Americans, black Africans, and he was trying to get them educated. Couldn't get the community to help, couldn't get the Department of Education to help, so he sold his car and put it on escrow account. So now the incidents. I met this beautiful African student who was a barrister in London, and he saw my name, and he came and flipped it, and he says, related to Onaly Kapasi, the teacher Kapasi. I said, yes. He says, how? I said, that was my dad. He says, your dad was a marvelous person. He insisted that I, a son of a peasant, should go to school. Now I'm a barrister.
Wow.
But my dad never wanted him to know that the money came from his car, so I never told him.
That is very sweet. Very, very sweet. Very sweet. So you spoke of the different books that you're writing, and they seem to be of different subjects altogether, and it's going on in parallel. Now that's quite a challenge for any author to write on multiple subjects at the same time. So do you have personal associations with Kashmir or other topics that you're writing on, or are you researching and putting stuff together? How are you collecting all your thoughts?
Yes and no. About Kashmir, when I was pre-med, 7 of us, stupid 7 students, decided to hitchhike from Pune. We were at Wadia, from Pune all the way to Srinagar.
Wow.
So we took 3 months, reached Srinagar, various episodes. So I knew the territory well because I'd walked that territory. And I knew the people well because I stayed with them. So when all this problems were happening in Kashmir, I started researching. And my book is on research of Kashmir and what the present day Kashmir is, what was not when I went to Kashmir. Kashmir was a pleasant, beautiful valley, just as Shah Jahan had described it. If there is a heaven on earth, this is it, this is it. It was truly then. And so I have finished that book, Kashmir on Fire, which is in print. The next book is Deja Vu, is life's experiences. And we go through life experiences, but we never try to sit back and learn from it. And this book actually introspects my own experiences, and I'm asking that question, why did it happen to me and what did I gain from it? The third book is about tectonic plates, which is completely entirely different. And the thesis is that the drilling of oil from the Earth's deeper crust, what we are doing now, removes hydraulic fluid from the depth of the Earth and causes a problem with gliding of the tectonic plates. And that would relate to increased incidence of seismic activities. And when I started the book, everybody was saying, that is not true, because we are putting back in water into the drill wells. And as a matter of fact, it's true today. Now they're finding out that putting water into the drill hole is the wrong thing to do. So that's about tectonic plates. Yeah, I enjoy writing.
Wonderful, wonderful. So every life, I'm sure, has lots of incidents that happen and that are impactful, but very few people actually do something about that impact and bring it to a tangible result. And I think your life is a perfect example of that. I think you've taken different incidents from your life, documented them so beautifully in the form of poetry or going forward in the form of different books that are going to come out soon. I think that's pure inspiration for so many. It's inspiration for me sitting next to you, listening to all that. And that's what Foundations TV is all about, spreading inspiration through awareness. So I'm so glad that we got to talk to you. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Kapasi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. It is very interesting to talk about the subjects I love. And as I love medicine, many a times people ask me, says, poetry and medicine are two conflicting subjects. The one is too sensitive, the other isn't. But truly, that's so wrong, because as a surgeon, I'm a poet. I work in rhythm. If I cannot work in rhythm, then my surgical work is not poetry. It is disaster. So every physician, every surgeon is a poet. The poetry flows. Thank you so much.